Want to take care when you're vacuuming not to suck up these little felts. Boy, they'll just suck right up into the vacuum. Even the big ones, especially if you've got a larger opening. You see, the larger opening would allow those big felts to suck right up off of there, and it would go right in the vacuum, and you'd never find it again. The felts can be replaced, of course, and you would be replacing them if they were wore out, but these look great. It's a 45-year-old piano. It's actually doing pretty good, like it hasn't been played a lot. I'm going to put the keys back in, and then I'm going to take the keys back out, but I need to test the keys to make sure that they work easily. I had a problem when I was tuning, when I put the first tuning on the piano. I had two keys that were sluggish. Now they wouldn't come back down easily. So we're going to check all of them. Okay, everything's in the piano. And then to test it, I'm just going to watch that they fall back on their own. See how these just come, when I let go, I'm not pushing, they're just falling back on the weight of their own fronts here. Yes, everything here looks good. I get all the way down, all these work, I get all the way down to the last sharp. And it stays up. See how sticky that is? It won't come back down. So to fix that, I mean, it shouldn't be too loose, but I need to squeeze these felts back just a touch. All I'm doing is barely squeezing. Flattening that felt just a little bit with a special tool. Let's try that. Yeah, that's still not enough. Okay, I think what I want to do is remove the keys next to it to make sure they're not sticking against the wood of the key that I'm working on. This pin has a slight turn in it. They're a flat pin and they can turn like this to keep the key from going back and forth, and I can see that it's turned quite a way, so I'm going to spin that back straight. It's turned this way and now I'm turning it back straight. Now let's try it. Oh, that seems to have been the problem. Yeah, this bushing is snug, so the key isn't tilting like this. It feels good. And the front of the key is moving, so I'm going to come back just a little bit until it's sticky again. Well, it didn't take very much. There. Now there's no side-to-side move on the key. I mean, if it rattles side to side like this, any direction, then it would be rattly. It just needs to be snug yet operate properly. There you go. All right, with this action still on the table, I can see where the springs are, and they need to be in their little grooves. If I pull that up out of the groove, you see that there's kind of a V shape in the felt, and I can put that right back up in the V. It's V'd enough that it holds it. It's not V'd very much, but all of the springs need to be in their proper position. Okay, now let's tip the action up. Okay, the action's tipped up the other direction, and you can see another spring. This is on the foot of the jack, and the springs need to be in their position, yes, but they also don't need to be broken. And it's not uncommon for one of these little piano's springs to be broken. What I did notice was up here in the treble end, this is the right end of the piano, one of the feet is broken off of the jack. Well, no wonder one of my notes doesn't work. See, the foot is sitting up off of the spring up in there, and it's sideways and it won't work right. So I need to remove that action and glue that jack foot back on, or replace the jack. Now let's see, this is a note here. Let's move over 1, 2, 3 notes. 3 notes. Can you see that the jack is turned sideways? The jack is leaning to the left. I'll expand so it focuses a little bit better. The green jack paint you can see on most of them is facing straight up. This one's facing to the left, which means the jack comes up here and leans to the wrong side of where it's supposed to push the hammer up, and that must have come loose somewhere, and I'll have to fix those two. That may be the 2 notes that I was having problems with. Okay, this is the broken jack. To remove the bottom part of the action, which is what the jack is attached to, you need to carefully take the bridle strap off. In the Baldwins, they're pretty easy because it just wiggles right straight up. Some have a curly cue, which is hard to get them off and then it can tear the little leather on top of the strap. Okay, then the 3 more, 1, 2, the third one over needs to also come off. All right, those are loose. Now we're going to tip this over and take the screw out of the back of the weapons that we want to remove. And then carefully bring that out so we can see what it's doing. That is really wore out, like maybe there's something broken in there. That shouldn't do that. That should be solid as a solid in the hinge and not wobble at all. This is the one with the broken foot. Comes out of there like that. You see the foot is completely broke off. There's actually enough glue there, a nice enough glue joint to actually glue that back on, and that's what I'm going to do. See how this is solid as I wiggle side to side? The jack doesn't move like this other one did. So I'm wondering if the base is split. But that needs to be replaced. Wow. Okay. All right, I have a bag of new jacks. In a Spinet piano, the jacks are not normally this long. See, this is the action out of a compact piano. Look at the difference in the length of the jack. I'm going to make sure that I get the right jack. The length seems to be perfect. The foot seems to be a little odd looking here, and I'm sure it would work, but I have a couple to choose from. Let's try this one. See if it's any closer. Actually, I like that one. That matches perfectly, so we'll use this one. If this hinge pin and this hinge pin are not the same, then it might not work. I'll have to work on that. To find that out, we use a center pin tool to push out. The pin pushes it out, and the flat plunger pushes it back in again. Like that. That's pretty stiff. It's moving. It's moving. That's a pretty stiff pin. Needs to come out as straight as possible. Okay, then I have a caliper. To check the caliper to make sure it's correct, I'm going to use a 50 thousandths pin and then adjust that dial back to where it's supposed to be. So that's actually a 48 thousandths pin. That's a very small pin. Some of the standard replacements come with a 50 thousandths pin, so if you put a 48 thousandths pin back through the new pin, then the pin would wobble. It needs to be the correct size. I can see that the point of the center pin, you might not be able to see that, but the point of the center pin is on this side. I want to push against the flat end of the tuning, or the hinge pin. All right, what I took out was 50 thousandths. So now let's put a new 50 thousandths. This is a new 50 thousandths pin in the hole and see if the hole itself is wobbly. That side sure isn't. That side feels good. And that side also feels good, so it's not the flange. Sometimes the flange glue joint comes loose and you have to glue that so it doesn't wobble. In this case, we have a really worn out hole here. You see that pin move like that? And there's just nothing you can do to fix that. This is the new replacement. And remember, the pin that I pulled out of the new replacement, everything looks exact, except the felt. The felt doesn't need to be there. So we can take that felt off and scrape it off. Just cut that, well, I'll cut that felt off and sand that so it's clean. It doesn't need to be there. But the hole here for the center pin was sized at 48 thousandths of an inch. So I need to take a reamer and ream that out just a touch so I don't split the wood with the new pin. Okay, so the pin itself that I took out of this was 48 thousandths of an inch. And my 48 thousandths reamer is very tight, which is how it's supposed to be. The pin is not supposed to move in the jack. It's only supposed to turn in the felt hinges. So I'm slowly working this pin to the rough spot in this little guy. Can you hear it working? Right here, there's a rough spot on my tool. I work that 48 thousandths out just a little bit. Okay, now let's go to 49 thousandths. This is 49 thousandths. Still, it's too stiff for a 50 thousandths pin, I'm afraid. Just working the wood. So that when I shove so that the hole is a little bit bigger, when I shove that 50 thousandths pin in there, it doesn't split this little round section. Okay, this is 49 thousandths of an inch. I got that on there so it's expanded well enough to turn. I'm putting pretty good pressure on it to get it to turn. 49 thousandths. That comes out pretty good now. So now I'm going to put a 50 thousandths. This is also 50 thousandths, right at 50 thousandths. I got a little bit more to hold on to. I'm going to be very careful. I can see the tip coming out, so it's working to make sure that's all the way on there. Pretty stiff. Kind of pushes the wood back, kind of squeezes the wood back. Okay, that's all the way through now. Yes, all the way through. I'm going to work that back out again. Then that will be ready for the 50 thousandths pin that will fit the hinge bushings on the piano itself. And I can push that pin in without splitting this little guy. Okay, so this is the number 83 whipping. We'll set that in position so that the hole goes over the spring. Again, make sure I have a 50 thousandths pin. Sharp end first. Okay. And then make sure things are very square as I push that pin back in. Great. And then snip it off. All right, I found my snips and snipped this off. All right. I also, while I was looking for the snips, discovered kind of a complete set of things here. Looks like that. Look at all the plastic parts. This is plastic, that's plastic, the jack is plastic, the back check is plastic, and the hammer butt flange is plastic. Things can be pretty plastic in some pianos, and that's not good because they'll just crumble and break. Crumble and break like that. All right, let's put these back in. This is number 83. This is the new jack. I sanded the felt off the front. This is the glued jack foot. Put him back in. So what we just replaced was a wobbly jack. You can also have wobbly flanges on both the whipping and the hammer butt. You can also have hammers that come loose. In this piano that we don't have that problem, but the hammers actually wobble and they click. When you play them, they go click, 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 click every time they touch the strings. I think we're ready to put this action back in the piano.